Holistic connection. Let's heal. Holistic connection. Let's learn. Holistic connection. Let's grow. Holistic connection. Let's be real.
Hello everyone, this is Pamela Topjian, your host for Holistic Connections, Conversations with Holistic Practitioners. And you might be able to tell my voice is a little different than some of the other episodes. I'm having a little bit of the end of like a summer cold, I guess. It was nothing serious, but it sounds worse than it is. So I like to have my guests introduce themselves. So I will ask you to introduce yourself and share what you do in the holistic healing world, please.
Hello, thank you so much, Pamela, for having me on today. I have two kind of caveats to my business. Firstly, I'm a massage therapist. I've been a massage therapist for about 6 years now. So I've always been interested in our body as a physically but also mentally, and I have a history of an interest in psychology and that kind of thing, and I work primarily with athletes in that field of massage therapy, all the way from kind of professional athletes to amateur to everyday athletes who are needing help with their recovery or maintenance in order to do whatever sport they're doing. And as I started to, work more and more with this group of individuals and talking to them throughout sessions and all that kind of thing, talking about what they do in their sport, it became even more obvious to me about how important it is to train our mindset as well as training our body physically, and obviously seeing different practitioners from a physical standpoint, like massage or physio, chiropractor, personal trainers, all that kind of thing. But it's just as important to be considering, what the driver of our body is, what's actually running all these physical things that we're doing, is how we think about that and how we approach it, and what are we saying to ourselves as we do that. So in recent years I qualified as a hypnotherapist first, and then a couple of years after that I qualified as a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner. A little bit of a mouthful there, so just NLP for short. And doing this has really kind of transformed what I'm now able to offer. So there is obviously a big crossover there between the massage and the mindset performance coaching that I do, but then I also offer performance coaching online as well. Obviously can't offer massage online, but
Right.
finding that having those two things together, and even, connecting with people that they are also working with, such as for personal trainers and things like that, having a holistic approach to their sport and their commitment as an athlete is just like all rounding. And both of those things together helps those athletes just surpass what they're trying to do.
Yeah, great. I love that. Again, we had talked before a little bit about how the mental and the physical really go together. And I'm a hypnotherapist myself, although I'm no longer taking clients, but I did have a client years ago running a marathon and has done it before, but always got tired near the end and burning muscles and stuff. And so through hypnotherapy, we were able to help him get through it. And it's just so amazing. And I know that a lot of professional athletes will talk about, they don't necessarily say hypnotherapy, but they will talk about visualizing the end or visualizing success for themselves. So it's a huge component for athletes, I think. So how did you first become interested? Did you start out as a massage therapist and then also had the interest in psychology or a background in psychology? How did you first become interested in doing the work that you're doing now?
So it all started many years ago when I was a teenager, so 20 years ago, is when I was kind of first introduced to psychology, and I, was taking classes in school, and that led me to taking a psychology degree at university. I went on to do a master's degree, And then I did work in the field for a couple of years, for about 3 years after I finished university, and then it was quite a stressful job though, working within at the time I'm from the UK, so I was working within the National Health Service for a community mental health team, and there were parts of the job that I loved, but it was also very stressful. And I decided to leave that job and just take a year off to come to Canada and work and have fun, and then return to that job in the UK. And I just didn't ever return. And I came out to Canada and I trained to be a raft guide. And I'd never done any kind of proper physical work before. And that introduced me to a whole new world because I hadn't really considered that. I'd always been kind of more academic at school, and so that just seemed like the natural path to go down into a career that was more academic related. And so that's what I did. But then coming to have this new experience, I came to realize how much I really loved to be physical during my work. And so I did that for a few years and then decided to go back to school to become a massage therapist because I felt like I was getting the best of both worlds of I could be physical in my job, but it's also very academic. There's a lot to understand in terms of, what's going on in the body, and different conditions need different treatment. And so there was a lot of critical thinking also involved. So it just seemed like a great option to me to do both things. So it was the massage therapy first, and I always had an interest in working with athletes because I have been an athlete both at a professional competitive level and also just for the love of doing sports. So since being a kid, my big passion has always been climbing. And then as a more recently, I just fell into becoming a professional arm wrestler, and I
Yeah, I
just
was
went
going to
with
ask
it.
you about
I
that,
just
so I'm
went with
glad.
it. I didn't even know it was a sport before I got into it, and then it turned out that I had some natural talent at it, and I just went with it, and was very successful at that. But that was a kind of tangent that I went off on there. But as I was working with more clients through massage, and also at that time I was in the world of arm wrestling, and so connected with a lot of professional amateur athletes in that world. I came to realize how important it was for me personally to work on my mindset. And I wasn't yet trained in hypnotherapy or
Hmm.
NLP. And so everything that I did was self-taught. So I was kind of following things on YouTube, hypnosis on YouTube, meditations, everything like that, reading books. I didn't actually get any professional help with it. And then once I trained in hypnotherapy, then I just had more and more tools to use at my disposal. And then a couple of years later, added the NLP, and I found that it just again gives a all-rounding, encompassing option for people to work with me for,
Yeah.
because the hypnotherapy is amazing for like what you were saying of especially, if they're experiencing performance anxiety, or maybe they're even losing sleep because of stress related to, like you said, a marathon that they're doing. I recently worked with a ultra marathon clinic that
Mm.
was running camps for people who were coming up in the summer doing their ultra marathons. So they found the hypnosis extremely useful. And then when I'm working one-on-one with clients, we go a little bit deeper with the NLP into looking at their subconscious beliefs and how that is affecting their behaviors, their habits, the way they act, the way they approach their sport. And so that allows me to kind of delve into things a little bit more. And I find that really has like more of a overall identity approach for people, and then they are able to apply that to other areas of their life as well.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, that's how I got to be
Yeah.
into sports performance coaching.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I imagine that one of the things that you maybe have the most misunderstandings from clients about is the NLP or is it the hypnotherapy? Can you explain to people who maybe never heard of either one of those or maybe have some real misconceptions or misunderstandings about how those fit in with what you do? I mean, you did already describe how they fit in with what you do, but can you explain what those are like for the clients? So just so someone who maybe never heard of it or has misunderstandings can kind of understand it better.
Yeah, the two have similarities,
Mhm.
but also distinct differences as well. They're both a way to connect with what is happening in our subconscious mind. So, hypnotherapy, first of all, I like to think of it as like guided meditation. So, I'm getting the client into a relaxed state, into a frequency of their brain waves that they're more likely to accept what we're talking about and what the solution to their problem is and what I'm suggesting. And a lot of people have some idea of hypnosis, hypnotherapy, whether that's, what they've seen on TV or a stage show they might have seen on a cruise or in Las Vegas or something like that. They have some kind of concept in their brain of what hypnotherapy is. So if someone is coming to me for that, then they tend to already have some kind of idea, and then we're able to go into that a little bit deeper. But a misconception of that is that, I'm going to control their mind and they'll have no
Right.
control over what happens to what they do during this hypnosis. They won't have any memory of it, which is not true at all. That the client is always in control of the session, and I'm there as their guide
Yeah.
to guide them through it. And getting them into that level of relaxation, what that does is it takes away what we call the critical factor. And what that is it's kind of like a filter between our conscious and subconscious mind. And so even though like consciously we are aware of the problem and we're trying to do things to fix it and we know what we need to do, we really have to change that at like a subconscious level. And so that's what that hypnotherapy allows us to do.
Yeah.
And in comparison, NLP is another technique to talk to the client's subconscious and get down to that level, because just like I was saying with the hypnotherapy, you can have a conscious awareness of whatever the problem is, but there's some underlying belief that is kind of running your internal system, if we want to call it that.
Yeah, like your subconscious knows something that you've planted in there or someone else planted in there long ago, and you're not even sure sometimes what that block is, right? And so,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
And so that's what the NLP does. We
yeah,
go back and we go to past events and all the way back to childhood or even earlier. Some people go into previous generations or past lives, and that is possible with NLP. And
yeah.
it's been amazing to see the shift in clients and the freedom that that gives them. I tend to start more with NLP, and
Mm-hmm.
then I use the hypnosis to really cement the
Yeah.
changes that have happened and the shifts that have been made, and I find that that is the best way for the two to work together. And then using hypnosis recordings, that's something that I give them to listen
Oh,
to. So when they're, in between sessions, that's when the hypnosis really comes into its own as well, because the more that they listen to something like that, especially before they go to sleep, then the more that's going to kind of take effect for them.
yeah, that's really nice that you do that for them, giving them recordings as well. So are you recording the sessions that you're having with them and then giving them that, or are you giving them a separate, different recording?
So I have a couple of like general recordings that I can give them right from the beginning. And then once I've kind of established their own personal goals and what's really important with that within NLP and hypnotherapy is to use your client's language, because that is what they're going to connect with the most, and that's how they communicate with themselves. So once I've got that information, then I can create a personal,
Yeah, more
kind of
personal.
custom recording. So that's what I do, and I've done so many of them now that it doesn't take me too long to do that. And I do find just having one that is customized specifically to you just is 10 times better.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but then even saying that, like when I've done these running clinics, I supply that one is more general. It's specific to runners, but I'm talking to a group, and so I don't have the ability to provide a custom hypnosis for
Sure.
everybody there. But
Yeah.
I've had amazing feedback just from those that are more
Oh, I
generalized
imagine.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so you talked about having these running groups and massage you can of course only do in person, obviously. So what kinds of offerings do you have that are remote that you can work with people from anywhere and anything else other than the massage that you really only do one-on-one in person? Or I guess the groups can be in person or virtual as well. So can you talk a little bit about that and how you work with people, the different ways?
Yeah. So most of my work is one-on-one when it comes to
Okay.
my actual offerings, but I work with groups in a sense because, like you were saying, especially with NLP, people don't really know what that is.
Right, right,
Unless they're kind of in our world, if
right.
I'm talking to a hypnotherapist, they tend to know or at least have heard of NLP and they're in that world, so they have a much better understanding of that kind of thing. And some people do have a general knowledge of it, but most people that I talk to at things like these running clinics haven't really heard of it before. So that's why I run these kinds of things to give them an introduction to it. I find the best way is to just show them rather than trying to explain it.
Yeah,
I just talk a little bit and then I can basically walk them through a visualization process of how to create that visualization or use one that they've already experienced and then how to enhance that. And in the way that I do that is walking them through changing what we call submodalities. And what that means is, for example, if we're talking about the visuals in that visualization, that image that they're creating, then things like colors, we can make them pop, we can make them become more vibrant, we can move them so they're closer to us. And what happens when we do that is that you'll notice, for example, if I'm doing that visualization to help them build confidence, as they brighten those colors and make them pop and see them as more vivid and vibrant, and as they move that picture further towards them, they'll notice that those feelings of confidence increase. And then vice versa, they move it slightly further away from them, they kind of drain that color out, and they may notice that those feelings dissipate a little bit. And the easiest way to do that is to just do it
yeah,
rather
yeah.
than trying to explain that to someone who's never experienced it. So I do that with a number of different sports. I do focus on adventure sports a lot, so I've also offered these workshops online as well to places that are further away from where I am. I've done them with climbing gyms and other groups as well, and there's been a good positive response, and then that kind of introduces people to the work that I do. And then I have two main offerings. So I have my 6 week program, or 6 session, which
Okay.
is better to be done within a like a 6 week time frame, just because I find the results are better in that sense
Hmm.
rather than spreading them out too much. Um, and that is where we do a really big deep dive into what is going on for the client. And we start with goal setting. And the amazing thing about NLP is that we can look at what we call our timeline. And basically, what that is our own personal history of past events that have occurred to us and that have emotion attached to them. They kind of live on our timeline and we use that to go back into those, but we can also future pace, which means that we can look into our future and again use visualization to cement what we want to be happening. And so
Yeah.
with those goals, we can actually plant them into someone's future, which is making them all more likely for them to
Right.
come into fruition. So that's kind of what we start with. And then we delve into their past a little bit, and the hypnotherapy comes into that too. So that's 6 sessions in total. And then like we were talking about before, again, some people are still like, well, I really don't know what this is. How do I know if I want that if I don't know what it is? So some people would want to launch into the 6-week program immediately. For others, I offer a one-off, what I call a breakthrough session, and that's
Yeah.
60 minutes. I only offer that one time to people. I don't do single sessions other than that one. And it's just a really good way for them to again be introduced to this technique by actually experiencing it. And so
Yeah.
then they can then once they've experienced it, then they can make the decision if they want to then go into a deeper dive into what's going on.
Yeah, that's so great that you offer that. And I had that written down. I was going to ask you about the breakthrough offer. So thank you so much for explaining that. And that's all on your website too. So go ahead and share your website and all the places that people can find you and where is the best place to reach you.
So my website, like you said, has all the information
Yeah.
about the offerings that I have. So that's anniebeals.com. And you can also contact me from there. My email address is on there too. And then my main socials that I use, my main one is Instagram. So that's anniebeals.coaching on Instagram. And again, I give away little tips and tricks on that on my profile there. I've just started a YouTube channel. So right now there's just a couple of videos on there, but I'm adding those every week. That is called The Inner Athlete. So you can find me at The Inner Athlete on YouTube. And then that'll be some longer videos to, again, give people more information and more demos of the kinds of things that I do. And we were just chatting earlier, and I'm going to be doing a podcast of my own, also under the name of The Inner Athlete. So that will be starting very soon.
Yay! Congratulations. And
Thank you.
we record a few weeks ahead. So, that might be started by that time. So if the podcast has started and there's anything out there, we will put that link below. And we will also have your Instagram link below. We will have your YouTube channel below. And most importantly, your website. So we'll have all those links below. Is there anything else that you would like to share or to make sure that people know before we end this today?
I think just to know that a lot of people who come to me, because I work with athletes, but I also work with some more general issues and things like NLP can also be very useful for things like stopping smoking, weight loss, anxiety, phobias. And a lot of those people who come to me, they have been having issues with that for a very long time, and it has been causing them a lot of stress and having quite a big effect on their life and what is going on for them. And sometimes they've been to see other people, whether it's other practitioners of different types or doctors, and basically been told, oh, this is just what it is for you. This, or, you can try this pill or try this nicotine patch or something. And oftentimes when people have tried all these different things or lots of different diets, that's when you have to kind of start to look internally. You've tried to solve this at a conscious level for many years in many ways and it's still not working. So that's when it's like, okay, let's look at it from a subconscious level. Let's see what's really going on. And I just want to put it out there that there is help out there. There
Yeah.
is other ways to do this. And when we start to look inward at more of a subconscious level, that's when things can really start to change.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that you mentioned too, because I don't think we mentioned it before, that you do other types of coaching and these other treatments and modalities for people who are not athletes as well,
Yes,
who
yes, I
might
do.
be stuck in life with whatever things they're going through or habits that they're trying to
Hmm.
turn into something more healthier. So yeah, so thank you for mentioning that. And thank you so much for being my guest today. I mean, that was amazing. So much information in such a short amount of time. And I know I say that a lot, but sometimes people just really can share of themselves so eloquently, and you've done that today. So I thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I love having these conversations like
Yeah.
face to face with people and kind of really getting to know someone. So I always enjoy doing these.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And anybody listening, please look at her website. It's a beautiful website. And go check her out on Instagram, anniebeals.coaching. And if you are a holistic practitioner and would like to be my guest, contact me and we will talk about it. So thanks again.